Speak on Big Ten Today now. Welcome in. It is Big Ten Today on a Tuesday. It is great to have you with us. Dave Rebson, Dave Wanstedt. We're in October now, starting to get a sense here, Wanny, as to who is truly for real.
We are, and I think as obviously you get into conference play, things do get separated. But what I enjoy seeing is the teams that are making the improvement. You know, and we're going to talk about 2 or 3 teams today that from week 1, it's only 4 weeks, 5 weeks.
Right.
But boy, you see these guys cleaning up some of the things that they struggled in early. That's good coaching, and that's players being coachable.
Interested to hear who those teams are.
Yep.
As you mentioned, we're going to talk about a lot of them. The top of both divisions here, that is our big story. Let's start in the East. The rankings tell you it is the best division in all of college football. It's home to half of the top 6 teams in the nation. Number 2, Michigan. Number 4, Ohio State. Number 6, Penn State. Now, how about Maryland? Unbeaten but unranked. A huge prove-it game Saturday in Columbus against the Buckeyes. Want to get your take on each one of these teams. And Wanny, let's go in the ranking order. Let's start with Michigan. And indisputably coming off what was their best game of the season. You go on the road for the first time. I think there was some belief that Nebraska might be able to slow them down a little bit with how well that defense has played, but could not have been further from the case.
No, you're 100% right. And you know, yes, we'll get into the numbers, what JJ did and what the defense did and running the ball. But I look at this Michigan team, and I'm always saying, okay, what might separate them other than being talented? They're doing the things right football-wise that give you a chance. Whether you're ranked number 2, like Michigan is, or 200th, you still, as a coach, are talking about we got to protect the football. They protect the ball. We can't be foolish in our penalties. 3 penalties. They're not foolish in their penalties. We've got to be able to run the ball, and we've got to be able to stop the run. So the fundamental things, whether you're, like I say, one of the top teams in the country or bottom, if you don't do those things, it's going to affect your win and loss record. They're doing the necessary things, and now you combine that with some really good players and execution. It's scary. I mean, it's almost embarrassing to sit here and say 4 incomplete passes with JJ. We've said that 3 or 4 times already this year. And it's time, though, I'm going to say this. It's time that some of the Jenkins and the Stewart, some of the guys on defense become household names, because this Michigan defense is playing as good as anybody in the country. And it seems like, you know, that we don't talk about these guys enough. We just say the Michigan defense, but there's some real stars over there that are doing a great job.
Josiah Stewart, Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week this week, so perhaps that starts
it.
Him down the road of becoming a household name. But you're right. I mean, leading the nation in scoring defense. I know we had talked some on this show about the fact the offense hadn't been as prolific scoring-wise as a year ago. You were talking about a team that had averaged more than 40 points per game last season. They had yet to score 40 in even one game this year. They did that handily against Nebraska. We had talked about maybe the run game isn't where it needs to be. They're facing the nation's #1 rushing defense. They have a season high for rushing yards. The offensive line, well, maybe it isn't gelling in the way that it needs to. You've got some transfers here, and now you're talking about a team that has given up the fewest tackles for loss in the country. Did they answer some of those questions about offensive production in that performance at Lincoln?
Absolutely. And they, you know, in all phases, I mean, it sounds like a broken record a little bit, but they're doing so many good things. I'll tell you what Jim is going to have to, and Minnesota will be a test for him, right? Because Minnesota is going to play physical. They had a win. I mean, this is going to be a similar mentality that playing in Nebraska. You know, but the biggest thing that Jim, the challenge he has, and I've been on several teams that were like this down in the Miami days, and you got to make sure that you're kind of looking almost for a little bit of a crisis every week to keep everybody's attention, because it's real easy to get caught reading the newspaper clips.
Right.
And you're doing things well. What's Jim saying? He's going to stand in front of that team. You tell me what he's going to get upset about. There's not much. But sometimes you have to create those things just to keep that sense of urgency.
Especially since the schedule's backloaded. Penn State, Ohio State are both games they don't get till November. and a little different than for Ohio State and Penn State, where they're going to play one another coming up here in a couple weeks. Let's get to the Buckeyes. They had a week to kind of revel in that win over Notre Dame. Now you get back down to business. They're playing a really good Maryland team. How do you assess where Ohio State is?
Well, I think, we're all looking for the big plays on offense, but I think we got to look, it's a team game. And you say, okay, we aren't making as many big strikes, big pass plays as what we did a year ago, but guess what? We're doing better. We're playing better defense. And it's a team game. So, one area might be a little stronger at this point. The other area is still working its way through some things with a new quarterback, and so forth. So I'm not worried about Ohio State one bit. I'll tell you the best thing, and they got a big game with Maryland,
right.
But the best thing about playing Maryland, all Ryan Day has to do is put the film on. And he is going to see an outstanding football team in Maryland. So that's the best thing that I think Ohio State's got. Even though they're playing a tough opponent, at this point, I kind of like getting some of these games because, now, hey, it's going to get the players, they're going to be attentive. They're going to be taking notes in that meeting.
So I wanted to ask you about that. On tape, they're going to look really good. Do you have to kind of convince them at all that, hey, this is a team that we haven't had a ton of trouble with, although Maryland has given them a couple good games, but they've never lost to them. How do you convince them that it's different this year? How do you convince them? I mean, I guess you could say, well, you turn on the film.
Right.
But is that part of the challenge when you're the coach of an elite team like Ohio State? They haven't lost a home game to an unranked team in nearly a decade, right? These are the kinds of games they just assume they're going to win.
Yeah, you know what? Good question. And I've been coaching a lot of games where the team had enough talent to beat us,
right.
But they haven't played that way. And you're standing up there as a head coach saying, guys, they can. He's got the talent to make that 80-yard run, and this guy's one of the most talented pass rushers in the league. Players are sitting there saying, I don't see it, coach. I hear you. That's what's a challenge.
Okay.
Maryland's backing it up by their performance.
You're going to see it.
That will not be a problem.
Yeah. Okay, Penn State, they have a bye this week.
Yep.
Then they have UMass, and then they have Ohio State. So Penn State gave kind of a half of a good performance, I thought, against Northwestern. The defense played exceptionally well the entire game. The offense, it took them a while to get going. What do you think as you head into that bye if you're James Franklin?
Wow. You're right. They're doing so many good things. I'm starting with the defense. Because they are
fabulous.
Plus 11 in turnover margin. Now, obviously, you got to give Drew Allen, a lot of credit. The guy hasn't turned the football over. That's amazing. For a first-year starting quarterback, not to have a deflected pass or a draw or anything crazy happen. That is outstanding. But this defense, 12 tackles for loss, 7 sacks. I don't care who you're playing. That is difficult to do.
Right.
And they didn't just do it this week against Northwestern. They have done it week after week after week. And, I don't know. They fumbled the kickoff and Northwestern takes the lead. And God bless Coach Franklin. They're saying, well, you were behind and you came back.
They're behind twice. They're behind 10-3 too.
Yeah, they were.
Right.
But no, this is a heck of a football team. I guess the one thing with Penn State that I'm waiting for, the most exciting thing last year that between Allen and Singleton was the big runs that we were getting. Remember, they were clipping off 20, 25, 30, 40-yard runs.
Right.
And why hasn't that happened? I'm not sure. They're calling the same plays, so it's not like you got different people in there. But those runs will come. I think the key is that Penn State has been able to convert. I remember doing some games when I was at Fox and we were doing the Ohio State game and they had situations where they needed 2 yards and they had Saquon Barkley and they couldn't get the 2 yards, right, to win the game. I think this Penn State team will get those 2 yards, and they get in that situation, I believe they will win those games.
And the missing piece there was offensive line, and the offensive line is much better. The lack of explosiveness is interesting. I think the belief was that they would get there against Northwestern. Give a lot of credit to Northwestern. It didn't happen. I want to ask you this. Would you rather have the schedule that Penn State has going into the Ohio State game, where you have a bye and UMass, or would you rather have the schedule that Ohio State has? We talk about the tough game against Maryland. We'll talk about the Terps here in a second. They have Purdue after that. So they're going to have two more challenging games. Penn State's got a bye week and then a team that they should roll over. Which way would you rather have it? Would you rather come in really fresh, or would you rather come in really tested?
I'd like to have the bye week and then play them. You know, no UMass game.
UMass.
I mean, to me, that's almost. I don't want to say it because I don't.
So you're going to take door 3. I gave you the choice of door 1 and door 2, and you took door 3.
I took door 3.
But of those two choices, which would you rather have?
I would rather not play 2 games where we're not intense. I would have door 2. Okay.
So you'd rather have what Ohio State has. You'd rather have Maryland and Purdue before Penn State.
Yes, I would. Yes, I would.
Oh, well, so let's talk about that Maryland team that the Buckeyes are going to play. We're going to talk to Mike Locksley coming up here a little bit later in the show. Really excited about that. But what about this team? I mean, this is a prove-it game for them, right? They're 5-0. They're not ranked this week. They're right outside the top 25. I wonder whether you use that somewhat as motivation. But what do you think about this team that Talia Tagovailoa accounted for 6 touchdowns. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and their defense has improved by leaps and bounds.
And Hemby's running the ball. He's 6th in the Big Ten in rushing. So Maryland's a team that nationally, you know, when you would say Maryland, you would say, oh, they're going to throw the ball and score points, but we just got to outscore them. That is not the case anymore. I mean, Coach Locksley's got this football team where they are capable of running the football. You know, you throw the ball to score points, the old coach's cliche, but you got to run the ball to win games. They get a lead on people, okay? They can run the football well enough now to close out a game, in my opinion. And that's not even getting into what the defense is doing and how they've turned it around and making plays. I'm looking here just outstanding. I mean, Brian Williams is doing a great job with that defense, and deservingly so. Complete team. Maryland, offense, defense, special teams. That's the biggest difference this year compared to maybe some years past.
How do you coach a team when you're on the cusp of a game like this, when you've got a game where you know the whole country is going to be watching and you have a chance to kind of end those narratives about your program? There's no team in the country that has lost more conference games in a row against ranked teams than Maryland. This is a chance to erase all that on one day.
Yeah, you're not going to have to win one for the Gipper talk, okay? I mean, that's not going to be the talk in this one. The guy selling popcorn is going to be ready to play in this game. So this is going to be a game where it probably comes down to we have to make less mistakes than what Ohio State makes. And when I say less mistakes, everybody says their first thought is, oh, a turnover or a big bunch of penalties. Yeah, that's part of it, but I'm talking about giving up a big pass play. Like, don't give them the big strike. Make them earn everything. See if they can go 75 yards, 12 plays, and score a touchdown. If they can do that on us, hey, then hats off to them. But we're going to make it real tough for them.
This defense has certainly done that this year, but this is a huge challenge, no doubt, against the Buckeyes. Do you want to ask you really quickly about Rutgers? Greg Schiano's team back to its winning ways. Got a convincing win against Wagner, which is what you would expect, but now sitting 4-1 in really good shape.
Yeah, this is great. I mean, I was texting with them this week. I mean, they're right where they need to be. I mean, you know, the quarterback played clean last week. That's a goal for his, obviously, the turnover thing. But I'll tell you what, Rutgers will be a tough out. This will not be easy. Even though Wisconsin has more overall talent, this will not be an easy game. This is going to be a good game to watch.
We are going to learn a lot, certainly, in how they perform. We saw where they stood against Michigan, and it's overly ambitious, I think, at this point to think they were, ready to go toe-to-toe with Michigan, although they certainly did, early on, first quarter, look pretty good. But now it's a little different with Wisconsin. Can you compete with them? Can you figure out a way to upset someone here along the way? But if they win the games, I don't know if you want to say that they're supposed to win, but the games DiNardo likes to call them the matchup opponents.
Right.
The teams with equal talent, they'll be in a bowl game. And they could be in a bowl game as soon as a few weeks from now. 200
rushing, 200 passing. Yep. Don't turn the ball over. That's Greg Schiano.
And defense steadily getting better. Back on Big Ten today as we look at the West standings. Wisconsin, the only team that's yet to lose a conference game, and they've only played one. 3 more teams at 500 or better in Big Ten play. Iowa, Minnesota, and Purdue. Those are the 3 West teams that got wins this past weekend, though Minnesota's was a non-conference game. Let's get your assessment then of that group of 4, starting with the Badgers coming off a bye.
Yeah, I think I'm looking for their passing game to improve some. I mean, Braylon Allen's doing a great job running the ball, second in the Big Ten in rushing. So they feel good about that, and probably to a surprise of Wisconsin fans, that thought it was going to be a throw-happy offense. So they are running the ball good. When I look at the quarterback, when I look at Tanner Mordecai, 2 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, that makes me a little nervous for this fact that, yes, is their defense playing outstanding with Wisconsin? Sure it is, no question. But they're going to get in to win the championship, to win the West, win the Big Ten. They're going to be in games where they're going to be behind and have to throw the ball. I know that Tanner can run the ball. He's shown that he can do that. He's got rushing touchdowns. But the one area when I look at this team that I question is say, how are they going to be when they're behind for whatever reason, and they've got to throw the ball to score enough points to win this game? Will they be capable of doing that?
Those 2 touchdown passes, by the way, the fewest in Power 5 for Wisconsin. So and you think about in past years, maybe that wouldn't have been as unsettling because you were thinking about this as a run-first offense. As you say, they've run the ball really well, but now they're without Ches Malusi.
Yep.
So that puts more on Braylon Allen's shoulders.
The one as I'm saying that, I'm thinking people are probably watching this saying he's out of his mind. This kid averaged 35 touchdowns for the last 2 years at SMU, which he did, 33 and 39, around 35 touchdowns a year. But this is a different league. This is a different conference, blah, blah, blah. So I just got to see that out of him.
He is certainly capable of slinging it around. I think he proved that during his time with SMU. There was a lot of excitement about Iowa's quarterback situation with Cade McNamara, transferred in, never really got going, and then really tough to see him go down with an injury against Michigan State. The offense is already struggling. As you look at this team, they still figured out a way to beat the Spartans, and it was a very traditional Iowa way. They got a special teams touchdown. They forced turnovers. They kicked field goals. Is that sustainable, though, here going forward? I feel like we ask this question every year, and the answer is often yes. But do you believe it is this year?
I don't think their defense, they came up with the plays at the end. I just don't see the big play defense consistently. And hey, give them credit. I mean, we had 2 first-round draft picks. Van Noos, right, the big tackle.
Van Ness, yep.
Van Ness and Jack Campbell.
Right.
2 number 1 picks leave your defense. You just don't step in and replace those guys overnight at that level of play. So they have lost some guys. So their defense, I don't think, is quite as dominant. The one thing that we got to keep coming back to in my mind is the run game. When you get your quarterback hurt, and this, Rever, I mean, now all of a sudden your passing game, you're going to pull it in a little bit. There's a big difference between Hill and between McNamara, right? Yep. Big difference in experience and so forth. So now if I'm Kurt Ferentz, I'm saying, hey, where are we going to come up with a little bit more firepower on offense with a younger quarterback? It's got to be running the ball. I got to see that. The defense will keep improving under Phil Parker. I'm not overly concerned with that, but I got to see a little bit more. I want to see the run game take a step forward now.
If there is a team that's constructed to win this way, it is them.
Yep.
We'll see whether or not they can.
Thank God they got Eric All, the tight end, huh?
Yeah.
Ooh, boy.
Yeah. No, he's really good. And again, you're without Luke Lachey, who was your top tight end coming into the year. So injuries have really dealt them a tough hand. They've had some running back injuries as well. They take on Purdue this week, and Purdue really got up off the mat this week. To beat Illinois is one thing. To beat them as soundly as they did, for the defense to really show up, and it feels like they're developing a pretty consistent running game too, Coach.
They are. And your guy, Hudson Card, he's playing very well. You've been talking about him for the last month, okay?
You've been talking
2 touchdowns, no interceptions. But they are. They're backing it up, running the ball. It looks like Tracy is going to be their running back now, right? I mean, they'll alternate guys, but it looks like he's going to be the front guy. And then defensively, boy, I don't know what to say about Illinois. I don't want to get off track here a little bit, but 2 out of 13, 7 tackles for losses, 5 sacks. Is that dominance? I'm going to give Ryan Walters credit. Is that dominance by Purdue, or is that just bad play by Illinois? I mean, so I'm going to give the credit to to Ryan Walters. He deserves it. That Purdue team played lights out. That is a huge win for those guys. It truly is.
Was a huge win. Illinois got a big game against Nebraska, and I think we'll learn a lot about both of those teams Friday night in Champaign. I want to ask you about Minnesota. They did win a non-conference game, but we had talked all week about this was potentially a challenging game against Louisiana, and it proved to be just that. After the disappointment against Northwestern, what does it mean for Minnesota to now get a little bit of momentum heading into that game against Michigan?
I think PJ said it in his post-game show. This was a very talented team that we played, and we found a way to win it. Don't lose sight, Minnesota fans. Tanner Morgan, 3 or 4 year starter. Mo Ibrahim, 3 or 4 year starter. The middle linebacker, Marino, 3 or 4 year starter, right? I mean, they lost a lot of guys, and they're coming on. They're winning, though. As long as all you got to do, PJ, just keep finding ways to win.
Well, it's going to be tough this week
Yep.
As they take on Michigan. But, again, I think you have to feel a lot more confident in the passing game. Really, 3 of the last 4 halves, Kaliakmanis has played very well. Second half against Northwestern maybe left a little bit to be desired, but they're coming around there. He's been pretty accurate. You have the running back rotation, right? I mean, you lose the 3-time Big Ten Freshman of the Week to an injury. You sub in another guy, and he wins Freshman of the Week.
That's their specialty. That's their DNA.
Right. Our big stat focusing on the Maryland Terrapins. The Terps aren't just 5-0. They are a convincing 5-0. All 5 wins by at least 18 points. It is the first time that has ever happened in the history of the program. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows with Coach Mike Locksley.
That's why I don't smile, because you get out of bounds. If we just get out of bounds like we're coached to do, we get a chance to kick a field goal.
Smile on the way out. Thanks, Coach.
And that gets us to our big interview. It is time for some coach speak with Mike Locksley. And Locks, I know what a great guy you are. You're already smiling. So we get that out of the way. What do you think when you watch that?
Man, I sent Elise a text because I felt the way it played out was as if I was really upset. But I was disappointed that we didn't have a chance to kick a field goal. And we had just went over this with Jay Sean. And when Elise, I talked to her earlier in the day about being a little less angry on the sideline, and it was a great moment. But I told Elise I was sorry for making her go viral.
I'm sure she took it okay, but I do think it's really telling, right? Because you're up 27-3 at the half, and I would say most coaches would be happy up 27-3 at the half, and I would dare say that if this was 3 years ago, let's say, you would have been pretty happy up 27-3 at the half. So what does it say about where you are in building this program that you weren't, that you couldn't get that situation with Jay Sean not going out of bounds there and you not getting a chance to kick a field goal, that you couldn't get that off your mind?
Yeah, it's just, again, the frustration of the coaching this generation of kids is really, really trying because, you go over these things, and these are the types of situations, we practice them on Fridays. They understand what it is we're trying to do, and it's part of the learning process. It's part of the maturation process of our program, but it also is a standard that we've set for ourselves of how we want to play the game and, not taking advantage of the opportunity that we had there with an opportunity to score again. To me, it was a great learning moment, not just for Jay Sean. I actually went over it with our team. We go through our good, bad, and ugly tape on Monday, and it gave the whole team an opportunity to see that these are the things that we practice, we walk through on Fridays that they don't always happen, but they get you when they get you, and it got us in that situation. So it was a great opportunity for us to learn from.
Well, I know there's a lot of good on that good, bad, and ugly tape, too. You're 5-0. What do you feel best about with your team at this point in the season, Locks?
I just like the way our guys are preparing, Dave. The byproduct of winning is what you do Monday through Friday. And we've put together some really good weeks of, 3 and 4 consecutive practices. Monday, we try to steal a day. That's our day that we get back in after Sunday being their day off. And so we really try to steal a day Monday with how we practice, and knowing that Tuesdays and Wednesdays are going to be big, hard work days for us. And our players have really embraced that whole process, the walk, more than necessarily the journey. And to me, that's the part that I really like about coaching this group.
Hey, Coach, congratulations on a great start. The one thing that's so exciting, and I'm looking forward to this, having a chance to talk to you, because I got a lot to talk to you about right here. On the field, off the field, we got a lot of stuff in common.
Yeah.
But, the exciting thing to me is the perception for Maryland for a long time has been, boy, you got to go in there and outscore them. And you have got this football team put together right now where you're a complete team. I mean, you are playing defense, you are playing special teams, in addition, obviously, to the offensive explosiveness. So, how rewarding is that when you see the big picture, kind of everything has come together at this point?
Yeah, Coach, you know this as well as anyone, having been really successful in this profession, that it takes some time to get a program to where we have this one. And we're in year 5. And so the expectation, and, I said it at the Big Ten Media Day, and it maybe was taken as if I'm saying we're here and we've arrived. But what I was saying is that this team is now, in my opinion, ready to take the step to where we compete in the Big Ten for championships. And it's taken some time to get it here, a lot of hard work, a lot of great effort. I've had a bunch of coaches that have come through the program, that are in our program, that have played a huge role in it, as well as the players. And so, to see where we sit today is a testament to the work that was put in by a lot of people and not just myself.
What's interesting, I mentioned we have a lot in common. I was a bad offensive lineman at Pitt, and I started off coaching. Don't laugh, Robert. And then I started coaching the tight ends, and then the last 35 years of my career, my expertise was defense. You were an outstanding defensive back at Towson University, started coaching defense, the DBs, the linebackers, the D-line, special teams, and recruiting coordinator before you jumped over and became, your expertise being offense. Does that help you? I mean, I just love that in coaching. I mean, it's got to help you when you're looking at a big picture, putting a team together, what type of players you want in the program, have coached everything. I mean, that's so unique, but I think it's special. Does it help you?
You know what? It helps because, number one, Coach, it helps you keep a job. Whenever you need a job, they can't say, well, you've never coached this position. So it's allowed me to have a really diverse resume. But to be quite honest, as you know, Coach, when you've coached on both sides of the ball, and I call down the offense the dark side, when I first went over from defense, after like year 9 or year 10 in this profession to coaching at West Point in a triple option offense, I coached receivers and tight ends. I learned very quickly that offensive coaches give defensive guys way too much credit about why they line up the way they do and what they're reading and what their keys are. And so it's a tremendous different perspective when you played on one side of the ball and you can see what exactly it is you need to do to attack that side. And we even have that here with Josh Gaddis. Josh was a safety, played in the league as a safety, and now he's coaching on the offensive side. And I think it's really unique because of the perspective you get. It gives you a better idea of how you want to attack people. And I've been very fortunate because I've had a chance to coach all the different positions except O-line, which if I had to coach O-line to get hired tomorrow, I'd be able to do it. It just makes you a better coach, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's fantastic. We all know that recruiting is the lifeline for college football success. Well, you're lucky that I'm not coaching anymore in college because that D.C. area used to be mine back in the day, okay?
I heard that.
I'm going back in the 70s now. You were just a youngster back then. But, yes, I came through there, and I played at Pitt with a guy, Al Chesley, and Al played at Eastern. People that probably aren't familiar with that area don't even remember Eastern High School was the school, okay? And Al played at Pitt, and then I became good friends with Willie Stewart, Coach Stewart, and such good friends that I recruited one player, John, to come to Oklahoma State, if you can believe that, and I recruited 2 brothers, Martin and Delmar, to come with me to USC. So, I mean, I love that area. Coach Stewart and he would come to bowl games. I was over his house. He's been to my house. And now I hear that he's involved with you.
Hey. Well, Coach Stu is an icon here. You got Chuck Brown, you got Sugar Ray Leonard, and you got Coach Stu. Those 3 are legendary. Coach Thompson, don't let me leave Coach John Thompson off there as well. But Coach Stu is an icon when it comes to football in this area. The players that he coached, he won a bunch of championships at Eastern before moving over to the rival school of mine. I'm a Ballou High grad, and he took over at Anacostia and had great success. And I do know about your prowess with the Chesley family, and I took some of your work, and I did that with the Davis boys. I did Vontae and Vernon Davis. I did it with the Diggs boys, Trayvon and Stephon. And so it's good to get in those families. And once you get in and you show them that you are who you say you are, you'll get a bunch of players.
Yeah, well, you tell Coach Stu I said hello. He's a special man.
He is. He comes to every home game. Him and Miss Anita are still doing really well. He's at every home game here for the Terps.
You know, it's interesting you talk about some of those names, and those are guys that you primarily coached when you were an assistant coach. And I find it interesting, Locks, you were a really good coordinator, and then you got a head coaching shot at New Mexico. And I bring that up only to say, you know, it obviously didn't go well, right? You went 2-26 there, and I think a lot of it was stuff that was beyond your control. But even still, like, I know how much you want to be a head coach. And when it doesn't go well, how do you kind of regain the confidence that you know that you can do this? Because you have certainly proven at Maryland, not only can you do it, but you can do it at an exceptionally high level. What was that kind of turning point in your career?
It's what Coach just talked about, man. It's that DMV mentality.
Yeah.
We're gritty people here, man, and nothing's ever given to us. Usually we got to either work really, really hard and earn it, or we got to go take it. We face adversity. I mean, growing up in the neighborhood I grew up in, there's not very many that can sit and say that they're running a Division I football program. You know, you learn very quickly that life isn't fair, but you know what? You get knocked down, you get back up. And I look at that New Mexico experience as a blessing, because as I sit here now in my dream job, the things that I failed at miserably at New Mexico have prepared me to be even better suited to run this Maryland program. So, you know, failure is not final is one of the things I oftentimes talk about, and that I've learned more probably in the 2 years and 4 games I got to lead New Mexico than maybe even the 3 years I spent under Coach Saban at Alabama, because just going through those tough times prepare you for this opportunity. And you know, I'm not going to let this one fail.
Well, you certainly haven't. And Wanny was bringing up your defense, and I think Brian Williams is an amazing story here, because he's a guy who you kind of brought along in your staff, and I think you weren't quite sure whether he was ready to be your coordinator. You actually went out and hired someone else, and then odd set of circumstances, that person ends up leaving, and you elevate Brian Williams. And, man, I mean, this defense is incredible, as Wanny was outlining. I mean, it's a huge part of the reason that you guys are so improved.
I need to get Coach to stop talking about him so much, man, because everybody's going to come try to poach my D coordinator. But B-Dub is doing a tremendous job. The defensive staff, Lance Thompson, Zach Spavital, Henry Baker, all those guys have done a really good job of preparing James Thomas, of preparing our defense. And what you're seeing, again, is the consistency. And this is something I learned down in Tuscaloosa. You know, we've had some changes at the coordinator positions the last couple of years. But the philosophy of who we are on defense and offense and special teams won't change. But we allow the guy that comes in to add to it, and then also coach it to his personality. And I can tell you that Brian Williams is well respected amongst his players and is well respected amongst his peers as a coach. He has that personality that these kids want to go play hard for him. And right now they're playing at a really high level. They're getting turnovers. They're keeping people out of the end zone, which are two of the most important things, and they're limiting big plays. So really pleased thus far with where we're at. We've got a tremendous challenge ahead of us this week going up to Columbus, and I know our players and our staff are excited about this opportunity.
Hey Coach, one last one here, because I'm just curious, because it's always had the reputation, Maryland, of such good talent, you know, in the Tidewater area. Are you going national recruiting? Real quick, I mean, your philosophy, are you staying in a 5-6 state area? You know, I mean, how are you getting the good talent, and kind of what you're thinking as far as how to approach it for the university there?
Yeah, so it starts like this, Coach. And again, you're an old big-time recruiter. You get it. the number one reason people choose schools is still proximity to home. And so that 4-hour radius, we take a circle and draw a 4-hour radius around our campus. And if you look at the population that we have here in the DMV, Philadelphia, Jersey, New York, and even down into the Tidewater area, there's a bunch of people, which means there's a bunch of talented players. And so we put our focus there as our primary recruiting area. Now, the secondary areas are obviously where we play, and we play in the Big Ten, and so we recruit the states that are involved with in our league. And now, obviously, with us bringing some of the West Coast teams, we'll dabble out there. But primarily, if we can just find a way to get the guys we need within this 4-hour radius, it's been my opinion that we'll have a chance to continue to build a program that will allow you to win championships, because this area has for a long time been known as a basketball area. But I think, unfortunately, a bunch of other schools are starting to find out that pretty good football players are here, and the coaching. You look at the youth football programs in this area that are really successful. We've got about 4 or 5 high school programs that are nationally ranked. So we don't have to go very far to find a player. We just got to continue to show that we have the resources and the ability to develop players for the next level and earn degrees.
Coach, one last one for you, and you were talking about the challenge ahead this weekend against Ohio State. What stands out when you evaluate the Buckeyes?
You know, this is a unique Ohio State team because very rarely do you see so many 4th and 5th year starters, you know, guys that have been around a long time. You know, when I look at some of the guys that are lining up for them, and these guys typically have the ability to leave early. So it speaks volumes to maybe the type of program Ryan's created over there, to where they've got all these 4th and 5th year players that are used to winning. They know what it's like and they know what it takes. You know, obviously, number 18 is a problem for any and everybody. You know, Marvin Harrison as a receiver is as talented as a receiver as that will face. You know, they got a big offensive line. You know, 44 on defense is a problem. It's your typical Ohio State team, man. I've unfortunately had the privilege of having to compete against these guys a long time, having been at Illinois and now here. And so they are the Ohio State teams that we've seen in the past. But I can tell you that, you know, our team is excited about this opportunity. And, you know, I would hope that as I talk about this DMV thing, you know, we've got a little bit of pride about ourselves, and hopefully, you know, we can put together a great week, go up to Columbus and try to do something really special.
Mike Locksley, looking forward to that game. Really fun to visit with you. If you're smiling on Saturday night, then we'll know you've really done something, right, Coach?
Yeah, it'll be a real smile. Tell Elise I said thanks for being a good friend.
All right, take care, Locks.
Thanks, guys.
7 winners in the Big Ten on Saturday, just one Wanny winner of the week on Tuesday. Who is it, Coach?
It's definitely Ryan Walters, Purdue. I'll tell you what, 2 reasons. One, great win against Illinois, dominant defense, and he must be watching our show, Rever, because week 1 you asked me, what advice would I have? New coaches, Ryan Walters. I said, Ryan, remember why you got the job. Defense expertise. That's expert defense.
He called the defense.
He called the defense, and he deserves the credit. He deserves the award.
He does. He does. It's interesting because it felt like the defense had been holding them back, right? And that was what was so strange.
Yep.
With a defensive coach taking over.
He's watching your show.
He is. He's listening to you. It's not this one show. He's listening to you is the bottom line. Cannot wait for tomorrow. Anthony Hare and Pat Forty going to join me. We will see you then. Thanks as always for watching Big Ten Today.